There's so much going on at one time. I can remember in the office, I said to Father Thomas once on the telephone, I said, you know, Thomas, I can do 5 things at once. He said, well, that's great. I said, I can get the computers going, I can get the copier going, and, you know, I can do all these things, 5 things at once. And then later on, I talked to a friend of mine, and he said to me, is that really good? And, you know, I started to think about that, and I thought, yeah, I wonder how good that really is, you know.
We live in a world that's so busy, so noisy, so stimulated, in which information is just pouring in upon us from so many different sources. I can feel it myself. You know, elevator, there's always music in the elevators, and there's no place to find a sense of silence, solitude, peace, simplicity.
I had 3 children in 3.5 years, and then finally had a 4th child. And I remember I was just totally frenetic. I really thought, I have to do something. If I don't do something, I'm going to go crazy.
I was just divorced, and I had custody of 6 children. And I was looking for something, and it's a closer contact with God, you know, and some spiritual development. I had all my religion and my spirituality up here, you know. It wasn't here yet.
I had been married for 10 years and went through a painful divorce, and moved up to New York City, and threw myself into my work as a prosecutor, and that worked for about 6 months, and then ultimately I got so depressed and so distraught that I went to seek some help, and was in psychotherapy for, I guess, 6 years. I grew up in a household with where there's a lot of anger, and I was an angry soul. And I think the anger was what drove me in large part. The psychotherapy had been really valuable and helpful, but it seemed like there was more to life than simply psychology or self-analysis. And I was drawn to the idea of exploring spirituality from a religious standpoint and seeing what the intersection between psychology and spirituality was all about. Thomas Keating is fond of saying that God's first language is silence. Memories, anger, frustration, rage, fear, sadness, all of it comes up. And instead of turning on the television and distract ourselves from the essence of who we are, we sit with it.
Just this past year, had a very difficult relationship with a boss. I had to really struggle with feelings of resentment and anger and anxiety about the future. And centering prayer helped in that when I go to centering prayer, I feel that I can bring whatever I am to that prayer. I feel like the presence of God is under here in myself, and here is all my anger and tension and anxiety. And by just sinking into that presence of God, the presence of God can penetrate those feelings. Not take them away so that I pretend that they're not there, but transform them. It's not a matter of repressing the anger, it's allowing it to be transformed so that I'm not taken over by it.
Contemplative prayer, resting in God. It goes back in its roots to the Christian tradition of the Desert Fathers and Mothers, and that was around the 3rd century. When we do centering prayer, we first of all pick a quiet time. It could be at home, it could be in the garden, it could be in an airplane, it could be almost any place at all. Just close your eyes, and whenever you become aware of thoughts, any time you begin thinking about just anything, you just gently return to a sacred word, which you've chosen previous to this time.
I use the word love. It's kind of a gentle way of reminding myself that that's what I'm about. And that's why I'm sitting, and that's why I'm here on earth.
All of a sudden I feel tremendous sadness. I don't stifle it, but I don't focus on it either. I let it come and I let it pass.
We're all frail. We all have heartbreak and heartaches and emotional pains and psychological pains. And it's okay to have these things, you know. My mom used to always say, welcome to the human race. God, you know, receives these things and receives you, and you're able to really, you know, accept yourself as wounded, no matter how deep the wounds are. But it's a merciful thing, and it's a very gentle thing. You know, we say ever so gently return to the sacred word. You know, just a reminder that God is really gentle.
A very clear image of myself as a child came to me, and it was my room growing up, sitting in bed and coloring, but with an intensity. Receiving that image of that little one coloring furiously gave me such clarity into the adult movement in my life, which is, I can't stop and talk to you right now. I have to get this done. Shutting everything else out. Compulsive behavior. I am so aware when I begin that coloring activity, whether it's, I might be at school and a student comes up and wants to talk to me, but I'm organizing. I'm very busy organizing. And I know in that moment, the clarity comes to me in that moment, and I see the little one coloring, and I can identify it, the awareness, I can identify it, and I can choose not to reenact that.
There are moments when everything gets so still and quiet that for a split second you know that you're in the presence of God, in a deep presence of God. And even in the split second that you start to acknowledge it, it vanishes and it's gone. What it is really an experience of peace, of a deep peace that I associate with God, that I experience as God within.
I don't necessarily feel close to God in those 20 minutes. You can feel like, what am I doing? This is crazy. I mean, all I've done was sit here for 20 minutes and struggle with my thoughts, you know, and try not to get into planning my day. More often than not, for me, it does not feel like what we have labeled as prayer. I'm not inspired, it's a faithfulness. It's like when you're married. You're not thrilled. You don't walk around 24 hours a day consciously thrilled that this person is your partner for life. I mean, you don't look at that person every day as he walks in the door and go, oh, wow, what a guy. You know, it's just, oh, he's home. So that our relationship with God is the same way. On a day-to-day basis, it's the ordinariness. You know, we stick it out in the ordinariness.
The rage that seemed to fire the activity that I was about in my work isn't there anymore. I used to be afraid of people that were different from me. In letting go through centering prayer of a lot of the fear and the anger and the rage, I can see the human being who's there and a lot more clearly. I've now slowed down, and so I've come to realize that it's a lot less important what I do than who I am.
What does God's presence feel like? I mean, we don't know what it feels like. You know God has been someplace by the way you then go on to live your life. I know God has been with me because I am able to put down my work and give time to a student. Or I am able to sit and maybe listen to how my husband's day was. That's how I know God has been with me. I don't know it because I feel it. I watch myself and how I make myself available to people. That's how I know God has been there.